being the one student here at the moment. This is the campus where the University of Buffalo has its programs. We have 7 degree programs, 1,500 students, and we're within the Singapore Institute of Management. That's the worst logo in the world. It says SIM. And so that's the campus where I go every fall to teach. We will not, our study abroad won't be on this campus, but we will pay a visit to it so that the students who come over have an opportunity to see. Maybe they want to go do a semester abroad and they can see the campus and meet the head of the program and so forth. I'm Paul McAfee. I teach on the Singapore campus. I got my PhD from the Graduate School of Education, my MBA from University of Rochester. Laisha Gordon is going to be my backup, and Laisha happens to be also, I consider her a partner in the educational component of this. She's been a lot of help to me. And the next few slides, Laisha, I would suggest you unmute, and you can talk through the details on these slides if you'd like.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, so the University of Buffalo Graduate School of Education. Oh, this is my background. I thought I was going right into the program itself. So I'm currently a student. I finish up this year. I'll finish up during the summer. I went to the College in New Rochelle, which is currently Mercy College in Westchester County. And I did a stint at American University and early admissions at Buffalo State College. And my background, this is pretty much my second career. So I have been here at the university as an administrator for the last 6 years. I'm up for a permanent appointment this year that has been approved by the provost and the president. Also, previous to that, I worked for the U.S. Small Business Administration, but the bulk of the work that I have been involved in has been in banking. So I worked with 3 major Fortune 500 banking institutions, TIAA-CREF being one, HSBC and First Niagara being others. And I also did some moonlighting at the U.S. Department of Treasury, where I worked with large banks as a grant reviewer for federal funding. I've done some traveling. So when I started talking with Paul, coincidentally, within a few months of my conversations with him, I was headed off to Thailand. And that was my first major international trip to Asia. I had traveled previously, as you can see the locations there, but I had gone to Bangkok and Chiang Mai, and I enjoyed it so much that when we started talking about Singapore, I developed an interest. I can only say that one of the drawbacks, the flight is particularly long. And if I hadn't already traveled there or traveled extensively to other places, it might be an obstacle to a certain extent. But I find the long flights pretty relaxing. I haven't had any problem traveling long distances. Typically, there's a stop along the way, either in, I think, Germany. I've flown out of Toronto, and certainly I've flown out of Texas or Atlanta, going to different places. But in 2018, I went to Venice and Rome for several weeks. And then I had my son lived in Panama City, Panama in Central America. And I traveled there a few times. And then into Montreal and Toronto and other places throughout the country. And those are some of the other places that I've been to, most of them at least more than once.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add, Laisha, before I launch into my background?
No, no, not at all.
Okay, so I've been teaching since 2014 in Singapore. I teach for the School of Management. I started out teaching entrepreneurship and 2 sections each fall of strategic management. It's the capstone course. In 2 years ago, I switched from teaching entrepreneurship to teaching project management, but I continue to teach the two sections of strategic management. And I really love teaching over there, and I love the students. They're fantastic. This is the Merlion. The Merlion is the mythical creature that is the mascot of Singapore. We'll learn about these things when we go on the trip. I got my PhD in 2022 from the Graduate School of Education. I was in curriculum instruction and the science of learning. And my area of research and interest is experiential and applied learning. I teach all of my courses as experiential and project-based courses. So students apply what they're learning from actual hands-on activity. I spent 30 years in the corporate world as senior executive, largely in marketing, sales, and strategic management. And I worked for Ciba-Geigy, which at the time was a Swiss pharmaceutical firm, but it happened to own a competitor to Kodak called Ilford Photo. Eventually, Kodak hired me. And eventually, I saw that Kodak wasn't going to make it in the digital imaging world. And so I was recruited to Sprint and later to Danaher, which is an industrial products company. I also spent 10 years consulting, working with actually Danaher hired me back, Kodak hired me back, a couple companies did. My boss from Sprint hired me when he moved to a new role. The course timing will be May 26th to 30th, online from anywhere you want, asynchronous and synchronous, but mostly asynchronous to give students flexibility. We'll cover the academic portion, we'll do the introductory parts so that when we get to Singapore, we can focus on exploring Singapore. Students have from May 31st to June 2nd to travel. They should arrive by June 2nd, and between June 2nd and June 14th, we'll have our activities, our visits, and a lot of free time for the students. One of my students a year ago, 2 years ago, I was working on planning this trip, and she raised her hand. This was in Singapore, and she said, "Professor, students don't do study abroad to study." And her point was they want to explore and discover the country and meet other people. So I took that to heart. Everybody gets to go home on June 15th, or if students want, it's very inexpensive to travel throughout South Asia, Southeast Asia from Singapore. Flights can be as low as $150. And so students may want to travel in Asia once the program is finished before they head home. That'll be their choice. Okay, so now I'm taking this Lumen Circles thing, and this week our task was to create a custom GPT, something that a student could use to do something for the class. And so this is a project I did yesterday. I'm not going to click through on it right now, but one of the first assignments everybody will have is to help design the itinerary, because I'm going to collaboratively work with the students on the itinerary. And so this custom GPT has a whole bunch of data that I put in from my research about Singapore. And you go through and it'll work with you to create 3 days of NGO or nonprofit visits and 3 days of cultural visits. And each student will do that. And then I'll have all the students talk to each other and we'll narrow it down. I'll have some things already planned out, but we will narrow it down and try to make sure that students get to do the things they would like to do and see the things they would like to see. There's also in Gemini Notebook LM, which is another AI tool, I created the same sort of application, but it actually creates a podcast. And so this is two made up people, right? AI people talking to each other about the Singapore study abroad trip, which might be fun to listen to because they cover all the stuff that I put together for the trip. Singapore is only 31 miles. Where's east to west. It's only 31 miles. It's an island. There are a few little islands here, but this is where the predominant part of Singapore is, except for this one area, Sentosa, which is pretty much like Disney World. And it's 17 miles north to south. So it is a tiny country. It used to be part of Malaysia, but they got into an argument with Malaysia and split off. And to give you context of where it is, because a lot of people seem to think Singapore is China. This is China right here. It's not. It's south of China, Vietnam, Cambodia. It's the tip of this would be the tip of Asia, Malaysia, and Singapore is right here. Indonesia is over here. The students that we have in the program, the UB students we have, are from this area here, and India. India is over here. And there's an arrow pointing to Singapore. Where are we going to stay? Uh, we're going to stay at the YMCA now. The YMCA, if you've heard the song, it's fun to stay at the YMCA. It has an image in the U.S. It's not the same thing in Asia. This is a hotel. It's a 3-star hotel. It's beautifully run. It's perfectly clean. It has wonderful people. It's right near the center. If I go back a slide, it's right, the major part of the city is right down here. It's a city state. Singapore is called a city state, but the major part is right down here. And the hotel is right near the center of that. And from the hotel, you can walk to 3 different MRT. Those are basically subway and bus stations. And those go all over Singapore. So you can literally walk out, get in, and for $1 sometime, typically $1, go anywhere in Singapore. They have their own internal dining area. Students can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner there, although you're going to want to go a lot of other places. But if you want to come down and have breakfast in the morning, that you could do that. They're going to give us some very nice rooms. There'll be double rooms unless students opt to pay extra to have the room to themselves. That'll be an option. There's a rooftop swimming pool and there's a gym. Classrooms there. That's where we'll have our classes when we do at that location. I put together this slide. It's pretty wordy, but I wanted to point out that the YMCA at One Orchard is the Orchard Road area, and it's at the beginning of that, and all the best shops are on Orchard Road. And this YMCA is a social enterprise. So the focus of the trip is going to be social entrepreneurship and learning about the cultures of Singapore. That's why we're going. And it turns out that the YMCA specifically helps by hiring and training young people with special needs. So that picture you saw in the restaurant, I've met that young man, and he is autistic, but he's been trained and educated to work there, and he's one of many of the people who work there. So they give opportunities to people who might not otherwise have employment opportunities. Phoenix, have you seen Crazy Rich Asians?
Yes, that's my favorite movie.
Do you recognize that building?
I do. I was like, wait, that's the building where they like the ending of the movie.
Yeah, that's Marina Bay Sands.
Oh, okay.
A lot of stuff happens at Marina Bay Sands in that movie. The movie was filmed mostly in Singapore. Some of it, although they make you think it's all Singapore, some of it was in Malaysia. The big mansion that everybody goes to was in Malaysia, but that's a very short distance from the hotel. It's lit up at night. Here's another picture. I took this picture with my drone a few years ago. This is Marina Bay Sands. Down here are the super trees, which we'll talk about. And you'll see here's the, forget what it's called, but it's the Ferris wheel. This is called Marina Barrage. They block the seawater, and this is pumps and water purification, and they purify water to use for drinking water at Marina Barrage. It's all underground and underneath all this thing here. These are the super trees. They're lit up at night. There's a show every night where they play music and the trees all dance. They don't dance, but the lights go on and off to the tone of the music. Absolutely beautiful area. You can see the Ferris wheel in the background here. Okay, food. This is the Ferris wheel. This is one of the views of the waterfront in Singapore downtown. And this is a bus stop I used when I'm in there when I'm there in the fall. I walk about 10 minutes from my apartment to a grocery store, and then I take the bus back up to my apartment. And this is a typical bus stop in Singapore. They plant plants, they let things grow on them. There are two domes, flower domes, indoor massive flower domes. This is one of them. This one represents uh, tropical gardens as you go up in altitude, and they're just amazing. You learn all about the plants. They have signage all the way around. You can walk all the way up to the top of it. So here's the walkway at the top. You can also take an elevator if you prefer it that way. The draft itinerary will be uh, online coursework, and then the travel. And then on Tuesday, which will be the first full day, we'll have an orientation in the morning, give people a chance to get in on the second and get settled, a late morning orientation. And then we will have a public transportation adventure. We're going to get bus passes. The YMCA will give every student a bus pass, and we're going to walk over to one of the MRTs, the undergrounds, and you will be see how you can put money on your bus pass. I think there'll be $5 to start with, but you'll top it up, and then you'll be able to travel anywhere using public transportation in Singapore that you want. Make sure everybody knows how to do that. We'll have some sort of a lunch and some exploration. Be very relaxed. People are going to be pretty worn out and jet lag, so I won't work everybody too hard. And in the afternoon, I'm going to try to see if I can get us all tickets to the Bumboat River Cruise to go around the inside of the city on the water. There's a central water area where Marina Barrage blocks off the ocean. The downtown area has, it looks like a lake, but it's really an extension of the ocean. Hawker centers are places where you can go eat. I'll give you more information about that, and we'll end up at a hawker center, and then people can either go back and crash or travel around, look around. So there's a hawker center. This is actually one of the professors, Dennis Kim from UB. A group of us went to this hawker center. Hawker centers have, you can't see it well here, but they have a whole bunch of different vendors. And you can get almost any type of food at one of these vendors, and you just bring it back to your table. And it's inexpensive. You can eat very inexpensively. From June 4th to the 8th, we will have some morning discussions, not every morning. We'll have cultural venue and organization visits, uh, some group lunches. I'll try to get people to different places for lunches. Are you with us there, Phoenix? I see you have to relocate.
Yeah, it was getting so loud, so I moved.
Okay, are you okay? Are you getting any of it? Well, you can always watch the video too after we're done. Okay, and then I'm not going to try to do too much in the mornings outside so the students have time to themselves. What we'll often do is meet for lunch somewhere and then go to a business or cultural venue, but we'll mix it up. Saturday and Sunday, I will organize some activities, but for the most part, they will be optional. Students who might want to do their own thing on the weekends will be able to do that. So I've made a list of places here that we might go: Chinatown, Arab Street, Mustafa Center is a massive Indian shopping center. I threatened some of my students in the past who had just come to Singapore to study that I'll drop them off in the middle of Mustafa Center because it covers like several blocks and they have to find their way home. We'll see how that works. For the next week, some group dinners and lunches, a lot of nights when you can go out on your own, lots of visits. I'm going to try to get us into a Rotary Club meeting. And there is a lunch Rotary Club on Thursdays that I attend. And I'm going to see if we can take all the students to that and meet the Rotary members there. I'll talk more about Rotary when we do the first week of the course. Then we'll wrap up on the 14th, and everybody gets to take off on the 15th. Right next door to the hotel, you walk out the door, and there are two things. The first is Fort Canning Heritage Gallery, which is part of a huge, beautiful park, and it's next door to the hotel. And it's a non-colonial perspective. A lot of history, Singapore was owned by England for a long time. It was part of Malaysia for a long time. And This really looks at the history based upon archaeological finds back 700 years, and it's not about colonialism, it's about the original cultures, indigenous cultures of Singapore. Um, it's my favorite museum. And we're also right next door, literally across the street, to the National Museum of Singapore, which shows the history from the 14th century. We're very near the Asian Civilization Museum and Peranakan culture. I'll talk about. It's a combination of Chinese and Malaysian and other cultures that have sort of merged. And it's called Peranakan. It's a architectural style. It's a food style. There is a Peranakan museum there. It's one of my wife's favorites. A lot of other indoor venues, Indian heritage, Malay heritage, red dot. Singapore is called the little red dot because on a map, that's all it is. If you look at a globe or you look at most maps, it's just the little red dot. So there's a red dot design museum. And then there's all the outdoor stuff, Gardens by the Bay, where I showed you the cloud forest and the super trees. Those are the two things I pointed out in the flower dome. There's a skyway. If you remember the picture, there was a walkway up in the air, and you can actually go up to the observation deck, the top of Marina Bay Sands, and look out over Singapore from there. The Botanic Gardens, absolutely beautiful. The National Orchid Garden, I think it's the largest orchid garden in the world. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, all different collections. You could spend 2 or 3 days just walking around the Botanic Gardens. Other places, I won't read all these, but there are different areas that you can go. The students might want to get together and go down to Sentosa Island. That's the one that's sort of the Disney World, the whole island. And McCritchie Reservoir, I've walked around that with my wife, and it's a beautiful reservoir, but it's got signposts that explains all the things in nature. It's all forested, it's jungle, and they have a treetop walk. Have you ever heard of a Singapore sling, Phoenix?
No.
Okay, Singapore sling, you can look it up afterwards. It's a drink. This is what it looks like. They're ridiculously expensive in this particular location, but it was invented at the Raffles Hotel. The Raffles Hotel is a gorgeous old hotel, and this is called the Raffles Long Bar. And this is actually a manual drink mixer, and there are peanuts and you just throw the shells on the floor. And if you want to spend a lot of money, you can go there and have an original Singapore sling. They even have fans. You see these fans up here? They blow the air by waving back and forth. Um, any type of food you can imagine. This probably is not appetizing if you're not used to seeing the whole duck hanging there, but um, all types of food in Singapore. So we will explore the food. I'll give students a chance. The hawker centers are a good place to try different nationalities of food. And there's Little India, there's Chinatown, there's Arab Street. There are lots of places you can go to discover the cultures of Singapore from sort of a commercial point of view. Coffee is called Kopi. Kopi is Kopi, and there are about 15 different ways you can order it. And I have to carry this little thing in my pocket when I'm out because I have no idea how to explain what I want. You can see the combinations of water, coffee, sugar, all the condensed milk, all the different options. So I'll make sure everybody has a copy of this. That just happens to be one meal that I ordered once. It was dry noodles. And this is the Buddha Tooth Relic Museum. And it's really a temple. And it has, according to them, Buddha's tooth, a piece of Buddha's tooth. It's absolutely beautiful. And whenever you go in there, they're doing some sort of celebration or I don't know, procedure. You have to wear pants or you have to cover your legs. So if for women, they just give you, men can use it too. They'll just give you a wrap and you put a wrap around, no shorts, no short skirts. A Singapore dollar, you're going to see a bunch of dollars here. A Singapore dollar is 75 US cents. So the amounts of expense look higher than they really are. Think 75 cents, not a dollar. Hawker centers, I've mentioned. This is a list of 4 major ones. You can eat for $5 to $10. You can actually have a decent meal for $5, and you can have a huge meal for $10. Now that would be $7.50. Food courts, $10 to $15. They're all over. We will go to Ion Orchard Mall, which is a huge multi-story underground mall. And on the bottom level, they have what looks like a hawker center. They have dozens of dining areas with different types of food. And that's what they're talking about when they say a food court. And you can eat a meal for 10 to 15 Singapore dollars, 7.5 to about $10. And we'll visit that. It's called Food Republic there, Food Opera, one of those two. And cafes everywhere, restaurants everywhere, every type of cuisine. Restaurants can get expensive. So students, we'll do one formal meal at a restaurant. Most of what we're going to do will be at the hawker centers to keep the costs down for everybody. But we will do one nice meal, and I'll figure out where we'll go with that. Vegetarian all over the place for those who are vegetarian, also halal. So you can pretty much find the type of food that you prefer easily there. And then dessert shops everywhere. And we're wrapping up right now. I put some links in the last slide. This is a study abroad page, which Phoenix, I think you've been to already. And it's where you would register. This is my personal website, which has a lot of my educational stuff on it, but I also have stuff about the trip there. This is my LinkedIn profile, and this is Leisha's LinkedIn profile. Leisha, I just sprung this on you, so you might want to go and make sure you update your profile before people go visit it.
All right, because I don't use it much.
Yeah, and that is that. That's the story, and I'm sticking with it.